We are now recording for you, so.
Alrighty, well, I'll start from the top. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Joyce, and I'm a first-year medical student at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. I'm a recent graduate of U of I. I did my undergraduate years there from 2014 to 2018, where I studied human nutrition, and I got a minor in chemistry as well. After my undergraduate, I decided I loved it so much that I continued on with my graduate school experience at U of I, where I also studied nutrition with a focus in breast cancer research, where I did diet and breast cancer. So the agenda today is just kind of introduce myself and go through my personal journey as a nutrition student at U of I and how I came to medical school. And then I'll kind of talk about how you all might find your kind of niche in nutrition. There are so many opportunities, and it sometimes can feel a little bit overwhelming what you want to do the most. We'll talk about undergraduate research. How do you get involved? Where do you even start? And then we'll ask some of your specific questions that you guys all had. And feel free, Tony, if anyone has questions or if anyone on Zoom, you can just stop me or type them in the chat, and I'll make sure to address those. Okay, so how did I end up in medical school? So again, I studied at U of I for undergrad, where I was an athlete. I was a U of I athlete for the swim and dive team here, and I did that all 4 years. I was an undergraduate research assistant, and I was also a very active community volunteer. Now, when I came to U of I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to study. I started as undecided. So, you guys are all in the nutrition field major right now. So that's awesome. You all know that nutrition is where your passion is. So that's awesome. But for me, I had no idea. I took a nutrition class and just absolutely fell in love with how centralized nutrition is in every aspect of life, pretty much. Not only biology and medicine, but also with society and social aspects as well. So I think as a major, it's probably one of the most well-rounded majors you can have at the U of I because it covers all aspects of life pretty much. So my junior year of undergraduate, I kind of put my sights onto medical school. I really wasn't sure kind of what field of medicine or what profession specifically, but through exploration and talking to people, finding mentors, I realized that pursuing a doctorate in medicine, going to medical school to become a physician was my calling. And we'll talk about how to find that a little bit here too. So I said, I need a little bit more time between graduating undergrad and starting medical school. I need to gain more experience. I need to dive further into research. I need to volunteer more. So I decided that I would go to graduate school, and I was lucky enough to find a great mentor, Dr. William Helfrich, in the fission department, and he opened up his lab to me and gave me the opportunity to pursue my master's degree in his lab, where I pursued research. I did a thesis about diet and breast cancer, specifically frying oil and how that affects breast cancer cell behavior. And then I also had the opportunity to do some collaborative research over with the University of Oregon, Oregon State University, and I'm doing a little bit of some bone and uterine health research right now, and we're trying to get a publication out. So in terms of pursuing graduate school, for me, it was a stepping stone to medical school. Now you can pursue graduate school, research graduate school, and have that being a stepping stone to pretty much anything else. It could be a terminal degree. You can go on to get your PhD. You can use that to go into academia, become a professor, teaching professor, things like that, or go into industry. Now, what I really loved about graduate school at U of I is I was able to be a teaching assistant. And for me, that was one of the most rewarding experiences. I loved being a teaching assistant. I love interacting with students. So I really recommend that if you have the opportunity. I also volunteered in so many different organizations within Champaign-Urbana, which I highly recommend to all students, no matter what they're interested in doing in the future. It's a great way to find your passions if you're not sure about them, or it's a great way to start pursuing your passions if you kind of have an idea of what you are passionate about. And finally, medical school. So during the summer going into my first year of graduate school, I took the MCAT exam. Now that exam is a test all prospective medical students need to take to gain entrance into medical school. If you have specific questions about that, we can talk about that as well. I had to make sure to get all my prerequisites done to gain into medical school. And this is the same for all other kind of health profession schools. You need to have prerequisites to be completed. And then I also continued exploring the field of medicine. I made sure to shadow different healthcare providers. I volunteered in the health profession at different clinics and hospitals as well. Okay, so how the heck do I find what I'm passionate about in nutrition? I mean, there are so many different areas, right? There's kind of the social side of nutrition, and then there's the biomedical side, and then there's also kind of the clinician side of it. So my biggest advice to everyone is you need to explore, right? And what does that entail? You have to self-reflect, number one. What are you excited about? What makes you passionate, right? Do you have any personal experiences that kind of like fueled your wanting to even study nutrition in the first place? What were those personal experiences? Am I able to kind of further explore that and gain more experiences with that? Talk to your professors. So I will say that was probably the biggest thing that helped me gain experience in research and gaining a position in graduate school was I took Fission 220. It was my junior year because I was a little bit late in my kind of journey in taking classes, but I took Fission 220 junior year, second semester, and I talked with Dr. Helfrich about his research. Dr. Helfrich was the professor teaching at the time. And we kind of just started talking. We gained this connection. We had some similarities. And, you know, I asked him about his research and, you know, it just kind of clicked. And then he was a great mentor and everything. And I also volunteered in areas I was passionate about. So free clinics, we have several in the Champaign-Urbana community. Avicenna is one, St. Francis Neeson, so I'm blinking, but a different one as well. So definitely pursue that, ask questions, make a plan, but also realize be flexible. Things are changing all the time, especially, you know, during a pandemic. So things might not always go to plan. Don't be discouraged, be flexible, and work with what you have. And again, follow your passions. What can I do with my degree? Limitless. Getting a degree in human nutrition, all doors are open. It's a really exciting degree to have. You can go to graduate school in anything. You know, you don't even have to pursue nutrition in graduate school. You can do anything. You can do business, you can do anything, but it's the perfect major if you want to pursue any health profession or human service profession. And that includes medical school, dental, physical therapy, all of that. And again, academia, that really entails going down through graduate school, becoming a professor, a teaching professor, a research professor. That you can do that, and you can study nutrition again in that area. And then you can go into the business sector, industry, research development, and just general business, management, marketing. Really, again, no doors are closed for you. It's pretty exciting. And, you know, as first years that you all are, it's really, you all should be very excited. You know, you are starting your careers, and it's a good time. Okay, so undergraduate research specifically, where do I start? You all asked some really great specific questions, and we'll get to those. But first, I want to just kind of touch on the point of going back to the point of what interests you, going back to kind of what area of nutrition interests you, but also personal experiences. So going back to mine, I talked with Dr. Helfrich, who ended up being my research mentor, and his research involved breast cancer, specifically late-stage breast cancer. And this really resonated with me because both my grandmas had breast cancer, and my grandmother on my father's side passed away of metastatic breast cancer. And specifically, it went from her breast to the bone to the lung, and that's the exact model that Dr. Helfrich studies in his lab. So I found that to be a really kind of rewarding and motivating research area because I had that personal experience. So reflect on that. Maybe there was a personal experience in your life that really makes you resonate with a certain area of research. And I if you have that, it makes doing the research, you know, a little more fun, right? Because it's personal. So I really recommend doing that. And then figuring out if you want to do the more social side of it, meaning focusing maybe on social economic disparities, racial disparities, educational disparities. We have all of those researchers in the Fission department. We also have clinical researchers where they collaborate with Carle Hospital, and they do some patient population studies. And then we also have preclinical, which was my focus. And that's a lot of bench work, some animal models, some in vitro culture, cell culture work. So the opportunities are endless. And how do I find a professor to work with? A lot of you guys asked these questions, and number one, how I found my professor was just talking with professors. So that can include your nutrition professors, but that can also include outside of the Department of Nutrition. That can include chemistry, biology, statistics, you know, history, anything. Talk to all of them. You know, maybe there's something that interests you. Look people up, right? No shame. You have to look people up to find out what they're doing. And the only way you do that is, you know, by going on their research websites, going on the U of I website, and seeing what resonates with you, what research area resonates with you. Once you find that, send them emails, cold emails, you know, just introduce yourself, say something that positive about their research, why you're interested in their research, and what makes you, why would they want you to join their lab, right? You're a hard worker, you're passionate about that field, and you will do any work that they ask you to do. And this last point is pretty important, right? Be patient, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. I realize that opportunities might not be as abundant, or they might look different, but just even putting your foot in the door, getting your foot in the door with someone, making yourself known to a professor or a graduate student, that can really help, right? And they'll always have your name in the back, or maybe they know, maybe that professor knows someone who they would refer you to. So just be persistent and especially be patient. However, once you do find a position, show that lab, show those lab members, your future teammates, how hard of a worker you are, and that you listen, you follow instruction, because as an undergraduate, that's what we want to see in an undergraduate researcher, someone who is teachable, someone who will listen to direction, and someone who you know, we can rely on, who's responsible. Those are the biggest things. In terms of previous lab experience, as a freshman, first year student, second year student, we know you're not going to have, you know, publications and laboratory experience. We understand that. So that's not a major requirement. Now, in terms of taking like general chemistry or something like that, some labs might want to see that, specifically if they do a lot of bench work, a lot of working with chemicals, a lot of kind of biosafety stuff. But for the most part, not really. I mean, it's not a hard requirement for all professors. Okay, so Tony, I was now going to take the time to kind of address those specific questions that students asked, or if anyone wants to kind of ask their questions aloud or in the chat.
They can, yeah, you guys can type your questions in the chat if you want, if there are ones you specifically wanted, because Kate is someone who's amazing. She balanced, I'm going to brag on you for a second. She balanced intercollegiate athletics, deciding on a major, doing undergraduate research, again, pursuing all the classes required for medical school, as well as graduating in human nutrition, and doing so maintaining a good GPA. And then again, normally people do take what they call like a gap year or a year and a half or even 2 years between their undergraduate and graduate school with regard to before they apply to medical school, because it is so competitive. So she used that time really effectively to get research experience, publications, and to solidify her knowledge in the human body and sciences that's gonna allow her to springboard into the medical field much more effectively. And I love how she said, she's like, you can do anything in graduate school, really. Your undergraduate major doesn't necessarily have to specifically be in complete alignment with your graduate degree. Like I said, I have an undergraduate major actually in animal sciences, And then I have my master's with a nutrition focus. And then I went on with another master's advanced degree here at the University of Illinois in exercise physiology. So long as you're a really strong student, you're really dedicated, you're willing to learn, you're willing to work from the ground up and take some of those basic foundational classes in those fields. Like she said, nutrition applies across pretty much any of those disciplines because food and food systems and health can be applied almost anywhere. So that's one of the reasons I do love being an advisor for this particular major. So with that, I'll give it back to Kate. And like I said, I'll let Kate address the questions. For those of you who are through Zoom, I do want to let you know that I told the students who are here in person, I'm going to be posting an example letter that you guys can model your letters after if you want to get involved in undergraduate research so that you can be like, what do I even say to these teachers? So what I'll do is in the folder for this week, I'll post a link to undergraduate research opportunities. I'll post a link to the faculty in the Department of Food Science, Human Nutrition, so you can look at what they have going on. And then I'll post a file with the example letter. So if you do want to get involved, you can do that. And you don't have to commit to 4 years of undergraduate research. You can commit to a semester, a year and a half. And what students don't necessarily realize is you actually get class credit for that undergraduate research. So it boosts your GPA if you meet the expectations of your research advisor, and it allows for you to diversify your resume at the same time. So boost your GPA, gets you closer to graduation, gives you experience, grows your resume. I encourage everyone to check it out for at least one semester, sometime during their 4 years of undergraduate, possibly even more. My son is a freshman year, first semester. He's doing undergraduate research at Iowa State already. My daughter did undergraduate research here at the U of I before she even started here. And both of them love it. Like for them, it's better than their classes. No offense to us as teachers. So I don't know. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox now with undergraduate research, but I'll let Kate continue to talk about her journey as well as experience, and then also answer your questions.
Yeah, so we have a couple questions in the chat here, both asking me about how did I balance all that work between school, athletics, volunteering, etc. So I will be 100% frank with all of you all. I am by no means any superhuman, right? I mean, it's hard, right? I struggled. I did not get straight A's in undergrad. I will be the first to say it. But the thing is, it's trial and error. You have to find a routine that works for you, not your friends, not your parents. You have to find something that works with you. Everyone is different, right? Some people need to take it slower. Some people need to have an extended 4-year, 5-year, 6-year experience. For me, I finished in 4 years undergrad, but I was not ready to go to medical school after 4 years. I needed a couple more buffer years to take more classes and gain volunteering. So that was it. If it would not be possible for me personally to do it. It is possible for other people to do it in 4 years. I found for me that I had trouble figuring out which study method was right for me. And it's really just finding trial and error. It's making sacrifices a lot of the times, not being able to hang out with your friends every single night of the week. And it's also making sure you get proper rest. You know, if you get enough sleep, you will do well on tests. That's just how it is. And any specific habits, I really liked making sure I wrote things down. What in that day was I going to do today? I still do it when I'm studying for medical school, is what topics am I going to study? If I'm reading some notes and I find myself struggling on a concept, I write that concept down on a sticky note or something to make sure that I review that specific topic. But again, it's trial and error, figuring out which way works. But the biggest thing is finding a routine and sticking with it. Okay, there's another question is how do I keep myself motivated? This person is a pre-med path and looking into surgical oncology. That's awesome. I'm thinking about that too. And sometimes it's easy to get discouraged. I definitely understand that. Staying motivated is a skill, right? And you have to find what things you need to do to help your motivation. For me, it was getting out of my head and connecting with people, whether that be, actually going out and volunteering to those less fortunate, helping people. And right now that can be a challenge. So what I do now is sometimes I watch YouTube videos. It might sound a little bit silly, but I watch YouTube videos about people who maybe had some adversity in their lives. And then they talk about what they have done, what benefits that has caused them to see. And just hearing other people's stories motivates me, and it kind of keeps me grounded and realizes that, okay, I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, and if I just keep working, it's all going to work out. Okay, we have another question here. Did I enjoy all the required courses from the human nutrition major? Were any of them specifically difficult? Let me think back. So in terms of the fission specific courses for nutrition, I loved them all. Now, if we're talking about the ones like in other departments, specifically like general chemistry, organic chemistry, some of the math classes, no, I didn't like all of those. I really liked biochemistry. My good friend, who also graduated from fission, she really hated biochemistry. So, everyone's different, but just because you don't like something doesn't mean, you can't do well in it. You just have to kind of go through the motions. I will say in graduate school, I had to take a food science class. It was food processing. And I really, really struggled with that. I got a B in the class, and the undergraduates who were taking that classes got A's in it, but I struggled with it. But you're going to face that in anything you decide to study, but it's all doable for sure. And if you do find yourself struggling in like general chemistry, organic chemistry, there are so many resources that can help you. The fission department actually has peer tutors. You can go to the chemistry tutoring center, and I recommend Khan Academy. Their videos are really good. I have another question here. What are some of the courses at UIUC that you highly would recommend for pre-med students? Are there any courses that stick with you today? Great question. So the courses in fission specifically that helped me the most on the MCAT, and truly that are showing up in my medical school class today, is fission 426, I think is the number, but it's specifically biochemical nutrition, macronutrients. Dr. Pan teaches that. Is that right? Is it 426, Tony?
I believe that is 426. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the nutritional biochemistry courses. Best classes I took at U of I in terms of preparing me for the MCAT. Some other really good ones for pre-med was honestly Fission 220. It's kind of a quick run through of all the concepts of nutrition, and it goes through metabolism in a pretty general way. That's a great introduction to metabolism. And I also really liked Fission 420, which is nutritional aspects of disease. And Dr. Holscher taught that for me. And I'm finding that showing up in my med school classes in terms of medical nutrition therapy, all these things. And it's really quite surprising that I'm not surprised, but I'm also like surprised that my fellow medical students didn't get exposed to this stuff. And it really puts me at an advantage over my fellow medical students. But if you want specific courses, email me and I can give you a list of all the courses I took in both undergraduate and graduate school, because I took really good ones in grad school too.
Kate, if you send that to me, I can blind it and then post it in the class for not just this semester, but future semesters.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll send it to you, Tony. Okay, another question here is, what is the process of applying to graduate school from Fission? Okay, so Michael, do you mean like graduate school in terms of getting a master's degree, or do you mean graduate school like pre-health school, professional school, or both? I can touch on both. Okay, so the way I did it, so to apply to graduate school at the U of I and any nutrition graduate school, pretty much any biology graduate school, public health graduate school, it varies depending on the school, but when I applied, I needed to take the GRE, which is the graduate education exam is what it stands for, or something like that. But it's the GRE. Not all schools require that right now, especially during the pandemic, but I had to take it. And then filling out an application, just like you all did when you applied to college for U of I. It's filling out pretty much a very similar application. And then a lot of the times graduate schools have like visitation days, kind of like an interview. And so I did that. And to be honest, I only applied to one graduate school, and that was U of I, because I knew that's the only place I wanted to be. And I was pretty certain I had a position waiting for me in my lab. So I applied to one school, but many students apply to several schools, and it's just filling out the different applications. And what's really beneficial is actually seeking out a professor at a graduate school that you want to work with, and kind of making that connection, because your odds of then gaining admittance to that school is higher if you've already made a connection. And that's sending out an email, setting up a meeting, setting up a Zoom meeting, and it's pretty doable. Now, in terms of medical school, or any pre-health profession school, it's taking an entrance exam. So for medical school, that's the MCAT. For PA school, there's the GRE, and then there's a different exam that's kind of new. For nursing school, it's if you're going to like a master's program in nursing, it's like you can take the GRE, but a lot of schools don't require you to take the GRE. For PT school, it's the GRE, but again, not always required. For pharmacy school, it's the PCAT. But a lot of those schools have prerequisites, and you just have to check as to what the prereqs are. Fission pretty much checks, just being a nutrition student checks the box on all of those pretty much. It's general chemistry, biology, but you still want to make sure you get those all done. Let's see, we have a question here. I think I covered all of them. Oh, Tony, you mentioned volunteering online as a crisis helpline. I know a lot of my friends did a lot of my medical school friends did that. It's crisis helpline, and it's a pretty easy application that you do, and it's all online. You don't have to be in person anywhere. You're just on call and to answer the phone and help people through their problems. And it's just listening. I think that's the biggest skill. The most important skill in any field you go into is listening. And that's what the crisis helpline pretty much is. And it's a great thing to do during a pandemic because one, there's a lot of crisis right now, and two, you don't have to do anything in person for that. Yeah, Tony also mentions that learning how to talk to people is also a really important skill. Having a normal conversation. So I'll tell you guys my experience interviewing at the various medical schools I applied to. Pretty much the skill that they were looking for by the time you gained an interview was if you were a normal person, if you can engage in a conversation with your interviewer. By the time you acquire an interview to medical school, they know that you are a capable student, and now they just want to take a look at your interpersonal skills. And so really, I know being in a pandemic is hard, but it's still important to maintain, your social skills when you can.
I know a lot of people think that they've got to get straight A's in order to get into medical school. Do you want to speak to that, Kate, a little bit?
Yeah, so that's a myth. It's debunked. You definitely do not need straight A's. If you just Google the GPA averages for schools, it's not 4.0. It's like 3.5, 3.4, 3.6. Definitely not straight A's. So again, when I was an undergraduate, I struggled when I first started here at U of I. It was a big change. I couldn't really find good time management skills at first. But the biggest thing is realizing that, that you can do it. I think a lot of the times people don't think that they can do something, but that's the biggest obstacle, right? And then it's finding what works for you. And if you find yourself struggling, like maybe you got a C in one class, or maybe you even got a D, or you failed a class, then you can retake it, right? That's an option. You can retake a class. People do that if they get, a D or an F in a class. You can retake a class, and medical schools will see that as, okay, this person is persistent. This person learned from their mistakes, and this person was successful. That's even more important than not facing any adversity in your life, is facing adversity, doing something about it, and being stronger because of it.
And you guys are free to, again, keep asking your questions in the chat, because I think, Kate, did you address most of the questions that I typed and sent to you, or are those on the next couple slides?
I don't think I put them actually on the slides. Oh, I did, yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let me adjust this. What are the benefits of doing undergraduate research, and should I do it for my particular career paths? The benefits is that it's pretty interesting. It's fun. You can make a lot of good friends. And it is something to put on your resume for sure. And should you do it for your particular career path? Doing it is not a negative. Like, doing it will make you only stronger, but not doing it is not always a negative, right? You don't have to do it for all career paths. In fact, I do know some people who didn't do research in undergraduate and are now in medical school. So it's not always a requirement for all career paths, but it won't hurt you if you do it. And if it's something you want to do, then definitely do it. If it's something you absolutely do not want to do, you find out you hate it, then don't do it, but find something else you're passionate about and really dive yourself into that.
And one of the reasons I would encourage people to do undergraduate research is because you might fall in love with undergraduate research. My daughter thought she wanted to go down the MD path and be a doctor. And she's like, I want to do this, and I want to work with patients. And then she's like, wait a second, I can do clinical research in human nutrition and then have my research findings be part of, again, a body of knowledge that then doctors will use in the future to help treat patients. So almost like Dr. Helfrich's research and lots of other research that's going on in our department is becoming part of a body of knowledge that's changing the medical field slowly as we learn more and more and more. So if you're wanting a job with impact, and that's why you're wanting to go into the medical profession, and you're like, I love the sciences, but I'm not sure if I want to do an MD, again, research might be an option for you. And you don't have to decide now, or you might get into research and say, I hate this with the fire of 1,000 suns, which is what I did. I got into research and I used it as a means to an end to get my degrees. And I loved it for a while there, but then all of a sudden I got a little burned out on it. And I'm like, this isn't what I want to do long-term. And so now with my path, when they interviewed me here at the University of Illinois, they said, are you wanting to do research? And I said, no, not at all. And my mom's like, you're supposed to tell them yes to everything. I go, but I don't want to do research. I have no desire to do any research because I've already done it. And I learned a lot. I was fabulous when I did it, but I felt like that's a chapter of my life that I learned everything I could for me as an individual, as far as like what things I want and don't want to do. And teaching is really what I enjoy more, mentoring, etc. So if nothing else, it helps you eliminate what you might want to do in the future as well.
Yeah, great points. Okay, let's see here. What year do you believe is best to get into research? Does a research require prerequisite courses and overall strong foundation in order to be successful in it? So in terms of what year, I think, you don't have to start research as a freshman. I think the best year is when you feel comfortable that you can handle the work, you personally, right? For me, freshman year was not the year for me to even think about pursuing research. Sophomore year, no way. Junior year, no way. Going into senior year, I started undergraduate research, going into senior year. I think probably ideal if you have, if you're really on top of things, like you can handle it. Junior year is a really good time to do it. freshman year is, if you can handle it, more power to you. You'll really, really start out strong and early, and you could probably get some really good publications out. But the best year is, you know, a personal question. What year is best for you that you're able to handle both research, school, social life, etc. And honestly, that might require trial and error, right? Maybe you start a research position freshman year, sophomore year, you realize, whoa, this is a lot. It's fine to say, okay, I need to take a break. I need to step back. And if you just communicate that with your professor, your boss, whomever, they'll be understanding, and they'll find that actually it takes a lot of strength to say that.
And I would also echo exactly what Kate is saying. What she's saying is perfect and spot on. I myself got into undergraduate research as a freshman, but I actually didn't, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like the professor I worked for. So I was like, you know, I like research at that time, and I'm like, but I don't want to keep working for him. So I actually started interviewing at other labs, and I jumped into another lab. And I worked with this other professor on a different thing. So each year I actually ended up switching labs, which allowed me to diversify my resume. Other people say it's best to stay with the lab all 4 years. Other people say you really only need to work on undergraduate research your senior year. Like Kate said, it's an individual path. And if you want to talk to me as your advisor as you're making decisions, or if you want to reach out to Kate, we can help you make your own decision for your own path, because everyone's is going to be different.
Very good. Okay, and how have research opportunities changed this semester? Tony, I might have you talk about this because I'm not exactly sure. I do know for me in medical school, research has definitely changed. So I'm just started in a group, and everything is virtual. I'm not even going into the lab at all. So Tony, if you want to maybe talk about that a little bit.
No problem. Again, with research labs, it varies from lab to lab. Some labs have effectively, I don't want to say shut down because that sounds very dramatic, but like Kate has said, they've gone completely online. They've gone to more literature searches, and they've shifted their foci rather than having it be this human clinical trial where they're drawing blood, et cetera. Other labs are taking appropriate precautionary measures, and they're still actually doing some clinical human research. Like I said, my daughter is still doing some liver ultrasounds and other things. So she is in people's close space, but they're, again, masking, having a shield, wearing gloves, doing everything that your doctors would do. And then they have a smaller number of participants who are coming through, and they're, again, having more protocols in place. I did post on our course, the website that I created for the human nutrition students. There's a link on there that says undergraduate research opportunities. So there are some undergraduate research opportunities that still are available. Again, whether they're in the lab or whether they're remote depends on the lab itself and the focus of the research. So you still have things that you can do. It just might look a little different this semester. And the advisors are being a little more creative about how they can offer those opportunities to you.
Very good. And things will change as we get over this pandemic. So again, patience is key right now. All right, so what is the best way to get involved? I touched on this a little bit earlier. There are several ways. Talking to your professor is probably a really great way. Getting yourself in front of them, whether it be through Zoom or after class. Sending an email, Tony said she would provide a template for that. Biggest thing is being specific. What do you like about their research specifically, and why you would make a good undergraduate research assistant? Who do you contact? Pretty much whoever you want, right? You can contact Tony. You can contact your professors to help you get referred to maybe an advisor or a pre-med or a research advisor who you think would be beneficial. Or you could just, again, cold email them and with just introducing yourself and everything. What research area suits you? Again, it's exploring what excites you about nutrition. What are you passionate about? What do you feel like you could talk about hours about? So it's just doing self-exploration and also actually researching different topics, and volunteering in the community can also help you find what you're interested in.
And even though there are a lot of questions on the next few slides, some of them overlap, so you can touch on them real quickly.
Okay, so I touched on a lot of these. Again, as I said, I know people who did not do research in undergraduate and who are now medical students. Majority did do research. It's definitely something that you should seriously consider if you're considering medical school. Nursing school, PA school, less important, but it only helps you if you have it. So for dental school, yeah, I think it will definitely help you. Definitely check with kind of what dental schools like to see. And in terms of, again, your background, you don't need background in a specific field of research to get involved. So someone is asking about, well, what if there's a student, what if the lab is already full? Ask that professor if he knows any other professors who is looking for a student to help, and make sure you say that you are willing to do anything, right? You don't, that's how you get your foot in the door. You're willing to do whatever they need in all areas of assistance, and ask for referrals. Someone asks in the chat, was I able to have a social life during undergraduate and with all the work and being an athlete? Yes, I was definitely able to have a social life. I love my friends. Like, undergraduate was so fun. Cherish every moment, cherish your friends, cherish your time, take advantage of everything U of I has to offer. But again, I will say, being a pre-med student, athlete, wanting to achieve high standards academically, it does require sacrifices. And everyone is different as to how many sacrifices you need to make in order to achieve your specific goals. But I definitely was able to have a social life. It was a very fun time. U of I is a great school.
And as you go to the next set of questions and read those, I'll echo what she says. I was actually, Kate, I was on the U of I cross country team, right?
Yeah, do. Yeah, go Illini.
So my freshman year, I was on the U of I cross country team, and then for a variety of reasons, I switched to being like a road athlete, and I do like competitive road races that I thought I could win. So I was still an athlete through my other 3 years of undergraduate. So I was juggling undergraduate research and that, and I did have a social life. But literally, if you look at my calendar now, it echoes what my calendar was when I was an undergraduate. I like to say every 5 minutes is filled up with something productive or fun. Just sitting there doing nothing and just mindlessly looking at Facebook is not really an option. So I'm either hanging out with friends and doing something fun that I've scheduled, or again, what I would do is I'd wake up in the morning, work in the morning, go to classes, then I would take a nap because naps were very important. Like Kate said, sleep and self-care is critical. Made sure I eat something, went back to class, did all of my training right after class, went to dinner, sweaty, smelly, the stinky kid, probably, no one really complained, but still, then showered, did more homework, and then at 11 p.m. I'd go out for a few hours, and then start all over the next day. That's pretty much, so I'd go out almost every single night, and I would find ways to study with people. And actually one of the women who I studied with my freshman year, her and I were texting this morning. We're still friends 20 plus years later. So make those connections, have fun, make those friends, but you almost have to make a concerted effort to have your time count, either, like I said, in a fun and personal way or a productive way towards your classes, or both at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm still friends with all my teammates who I met through swimming at U of I, and just other classmates as well. So they're lifelong friendships. It's awesome. And be patient during the pandemic because it's harder to make friends. I get that. So someone asks, do you get credit hours for research? Yes, you can sign up for an undergraduate research class where you get hours. Someone asks, is it likely for a freshman to have their own research project? It is a possibility. It's a possibility, but probably as a freshman, the likelihood is low. You'll definitely need to get into a lab and prove yourself first. And then depending on kind of what lab you're in, what opportunities there are, there is a possibility to then have that project develop into your own undergraduate research project. But that'll be later. That'll be after several years probably of working in that lab. Let's see here. Someone asks, like, depending on like what areas of research require more like actual physical experiment work and what others don't. So it depends on what stage a project is in. If the project is in a data collection phase, that might require more, if it's social, interviewing people, physically doing experiments, whether it be actual lab work like you would do in a chemistry lab or a biology lab, or interviewing patients, getting like their diet history, things like that. Now, if it's in a later stage data analysis, that'll require more, statistical work, statistical analysis, a lot of Excel. You do a lot of Excel work in research, but it just depends. Someone asked, how are you doing with stress of medical school? Awesome, awesome question. So stress in medical school is actually a topic of itself, but I will say personally, the medical school I'm at is doing a really nice job of making sure all of us students are taking care of ourselves and giving us resources, making them known to us if we need to, have time for ourselves, address mental health stuff. Me personally, I found honestly that my education from Fission and Fission graduate school undergrad really, really helped out in terms of the first class I'm taking at medical school, which is immunology. I took an immunology class at U of I, and I will be honest, it was more challenging than the immunology I'm learning in medical school. Specifically, we needed to know more fine details in the U of I class. And in medical school, it's a little bit more broad and a little bit more applied. So my stress right now is not that high. I'm aware that it could get higher. So it's just being on top of your work and not falling behind. But that's a really good question. So, take your classes seriously at U of I because they are helpful. They're really, really helpful.
Another question that's directed at me. It said, would you say the undergraduate research apprenticeship program would be a good way to introduce yourself to research? I'm actually not super familiar with that program. I'm going to be completely transparent that the university creates new programs and they have awesome opportunities. But for me to be intimately involved or aware of the details of them, every single one of them is kind of hard for me to do. So I would say contact someone on the website there, and then let me know what you find out, because I can learn from you guys too. And then if you need me to be an advocate for you, you can say, hey, here's the email I got, or here's the website I found. Can you help me figure out what to do next? I can do that with you. So we can actively figure it out together. And I had someone ask about the Ignite program, like, hey, I got a letter in August, but I haven't heard too much since. What I would say is, again, contact the person who's the contact person on that letter itself. And then I can help you with formulating a letter to undergraduate advisors, as well as research professors, where you can get aligned with people who might be able to help you with finding a research project for your Ignite Scholar project.
Any other questions? It could be anything. I'll answer any question.
I think it is about time. So if anyone has any last minute questions, type them in super fast, because I know Kate has a busy schedule and I know everyone here does as well. So again, thank you, Kate, very much for coming and sharing with us and allowing us to record it. It looks like we have possibly one new message in here. Oh no, it just says thank you very much to Kate. I just feel like this is invaluable to speak with her and kind of hear her path. Like I said, dental school is different than pharmacy school, is different than graduate school, is different than, every one path is unique. And that's one of the things I do love about advising this group is when you're like, hey, what classes should I take? I'm like, well, let's meet and have a conversation, because your path and your passions are different than the person sitting right next to you. And even though you guys might be in the same major or same concentration. So let Kate and I know, or me specifically know, how I can help along that path. So Kate, any other nuggets before you say goodbye to everyone?
No, but I just want to say thank you all for your time and all your questions, and feel free to contact me if you have anything else. Ask Tony or send me an email, and I'll do my best to respond promptly.
Thank you, Kate. And do you mind if we showcase you on our website?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about that soon. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.